You ever wake up in the middle of the night and feel like someone or something is watching you? Not the kind of fear where you hear creaking wood or distant thunder, but a silence so loud it forces your heartbeat into your ears, like your body already knows something's wrong before your brain can catch up. That's how this all began. And if you're here, you probably already feel that itch too, the one that tells you what we're about to talk about is not just a story. This is something you've felt creeping under the surface before. Maybe in your own home. Maybe with your own child. And by the time you reach the end of this video, you'll finally have the answer you came here for. You're going to know why the note under my son's pillow changed everything I thought I understood about being a parent and what that so-called imaginary friend was really trying to warn us about. Let's talk, just you and me for a second, because if you're a parent, or you were ever a kid who made up imaginary friends, this will hit harder than you think. See, I'm not one of those dramatic types. I never believed in ghosts, and I definitely never thought I'd find myself Googling things like paranormal note under pillow or imaginary friend turning real. But when your 7-year-old son looks you dead in the eyes and tells you he didn't write the note and that it was left by his friend who lives in the wall, you don't roll over and tell him to go back to sleep. You don't ignore that kind of thing. Not when the handwriting on the note matches neither yours nor his, and especially not when the message reads, Asterisk, he knows you saw him. Asterisk. That was the exact moment I stopped thinking this was just about childhood imagination. We're just a regular family. Or we were. My wife, Sarah, works as a nurse, the kind who still cries on her drive home but pretends she's okay when she walks through the door. I work in IT, long hours, decent pay, nothing glamorous. We live in a modest 2-story home just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, where the winters are brutal and the nights are long. Our son, Noah, just turned 7 in April, sharp kid, a little shy, the kind of boy who makes paper airplanes out of his math homework when he thinks you're not looking. He's never been much of a storyteller. In fact, he barely spoke to other kids at school, according to his teacher. That's why when he first mentioned Eli, we were relieved. Finally, he had a friend, even if it was just imaginary. But as the days passed, Eli became more than a name. Noah would save him a seat at dinner, whisper to him before bed, and even insist we keep the closet door open, because Eli gets scared when it's dark. I'll admit, we played along at first. You do that as a parent. You nod, you smile, you say, "Tell Eli I said goodnight." It seemed harmless. But it's never harmless when your kid starts drawing pictures of shadowy figures with red circles for eyes and hangs them on the fridge like they're refrigerator-worthy art. It's not harmless when your wife finds fingernail scratches behind Noah's dresser and your son insists they weren't made by him. And it sure as hell isn't harmless when a real, tangible piece of paper shows up under your son's pillow, folded carefully in 3, written in shaky, almost childlike handwriting that says something only you could have known. Because I had seen it. That thing. That shadow in the hallway mirror. That moment you brush off as sleep deprivation or eye floaters. Except this wasn't just a fleeting blur. It was watching me. I felt it. And apparently it saw me too. Here's what I need you to understand, and please stay with me here, because if you're about to click away thinking this is just another creepy bedtime story, you're going to miss something real. What happened to us wasn't a random haunting or a child's overactive imagination. This was targeted, specific, almost calculated. And the deeper we went into trying to understand who or what Eli really was, the more it felt like Noah wasn't the one being followed. We were. And it started unraveling everything. Our marriage, our sense of safety, our belief in what's real. We stopped sleeping. We started arguing over the smallest things. Sarah began hearing whispers while folding laundry. Always her name, always just low enough that she questioned her sanity. Noah stopped wanting to go to school. He said Eli told him it wasn't safe there, that the man in the blue coat was going to take him. A man we'd never heard of. A man who, a week later, actually showed up in the background of a photo we took at a crowded farmer's market, standing a little too close. No one remembered seeing him in person. And yet there he was. But nothing, compared to the night Noah woke up screaming, not crying, not whining, screaming like his soul was being peeled from his body. When we ran to his room, The window was wide open despite it being dead winter and latched shut just hours earlier. Noah was standing in the corner of his room, eyes wide, hands trembling. And all he kept saying was, "He told me it's almost time." Time for what? We thought about moving. We even stayed in a hotel for a couple nights. But the strangest part? The feeling followed us. The dreams didn't stop. The notes kept coming. Always short, always vague. One simply read, asterisk, under the tree where you buried him. Asterisk another, smeared in what looked like rust or dried blood, said, asterisk, no more lies, Dad. Asterisk. I started to feel like I was losing it. I began to wonder if this was all just some elaborate manifestation of guilt. But guilt over what? I hadn't done anything. At least, nothing I remembered. And that's when I started digging. Into the house. Into old property records. Into myself. Because deep down, in a place I'd long buried, something inside me knew this wasn't random. It was connected. And not just to Noah, but to me. To my past. I don't want to get too far ahead. You need to see this play out for yourself. You need to hear what we found hidden beneath the floorboards of Noah's room, and what the old man at the library told us when we asked about the previous owners of the house. You need to see how Sarah reacted when she finally saw Eli for herself, and why she refuses to go upstairs alone now, even in broad daylight. There's something more going on here, something none of us could have predicted. And if you think imaginary friends are just pretend companions, I need you to sit through this whole story before you decide. Because trust me, you're going to want to know how it ends. Especially when I show you what was written in the final note we found this morning. The one that wasn't under Noah's pillow. The one that was taped to the inside of our bathroom mirror. I didn't tell Sarah about the bathroom mirror note right away. She was already on edge, pacing the hallway every night like some shadow might lunge out from under the stairs if she blinked. I figured I'd give her a day, maybe two, just to breathe. But I couldn't stop looking at it. The note was smaller this time, folded into a neat triangle, barely visible behind the steam from the shower. It wasn't taped like someone panicked. It was placed with intent, like it wanted to be found. That's what unnerved me most. Not just the message. Asterisk, you forgot what you did. Asterisk, but the way it waited for me, mocking me, daring me to pretend it wasn't real. Because that's the thing about this kind of horror. It doesn't explode into your life like a car crash or a house fire. It leaks in like water through the ceiling. Here is the 5,000-word introduction for your YouTube mystery story titled, "My Son's Imaginary Friend Left a Real Note Under His Pillow." This introduction starts with a strong psychological hook, builds tension steadily, and ends on a cliffhanger to ensure maximum viewer retention. It's written in large, emotionally driven paragraphs, optimized for a US audience and current YouTube trends like creepy true stories, real paranormal experiences, and unexplained notes found. Drop by drop, until the entire structure rots beneath you without making a sound. The weeks leading up to that moment had been strange in ways I kept trying to rationalize. It started with little things. Phone calls with no one on the other end, the TV flipping channels by itself, lights flickering despite us changing the bulbs. The thermostat would rise on its own, heating the house to nearly 80 degrees at night, like something inside was trying to drive us out, or force us to stay awake. I blamed it on faulty wiring. Sarah called an electrician. But when the guy came over, he didn't even make it past the entryway. He said, and I'll never forget the way his voice dipped when he said it, "There's something in your crawl space." I heard it when I stepped inside. I laughed, thinking he meant a raccoon or a mouse. But when I asked what it sounded like, he just shook his head and left. Never called back. His invoice had no hours billed. Just the word void scribbled across it. I work remotely, so I had more time than I should have to stew in this stuff. And trust me, being alone in that house during the day wasn't better than being there at night. If anything, it was worse. The quiet was heavier. I started noticing patterns. The hallway clock would stop at exactly 3:17 p.m. every Tuesday. My laptop camera light would blink even when I hadn't joined a meeting. And every time I took a Zoom call, I'd notice Noah's bedroom door swinging open behind me, even if he was at school and the door had been shut tight. There's something uniquely disturbing about seeing doors move on their own. Not slammed, not violently opened, just nudged, like a quiet reminder you're not alone. Then there was Noah. His behavior shifted in ways I couldn't explain. He used to love bedtime stories, curled up next to me, blanket in hand, asking for just one more page. But lately, he didn't want me reading to him. He insisted Eli told better stories. That Eli told him the real endings, not the fake happy ones I was making up. And when I pressed him about what that meant, he said, Eli said the real world doesn't like when people talk too much. That's why he lives in the wall now. You'd think I'd be alarmed right then. But it's like your brain filters out what it doesn't want to believe. It pushes things aside, labels them as childhood nonsense. Until the moment comes where denial is no longer an option. That moment came the day Sarah found a shoebox behind our dresser. We don't keep shoeboxes in the bedroom. But this one was covered in dust, old, like it had been tucked there long before we moved in. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. But they weren't ours. They were Polaroids. All of the same little boy. Sometimes smiling. Sometimes crying. In one, he was asleep, mouth slightly open, eyes swollen like he'd been sobbing for hours. But it was the last photo that gutted me. Because it wasn't a child at all. It was a man, probably in his 50s, holding a familiar blue coat. The same blue coat the man at the farmer's market wore. The one in the background of that picture. The one none of us saw in real life. His face was half cut off by the frame, but I saw enough of it to know he was staring directly into the lens. Like he knew the photo would be found. Sarah thought I was the one hiding the box. That I was somehow playing along with Noah's obsession, feeding into it. The argument that followed nearly tore the drywall off the studs. And honestly, I didn't blame her. I would have suspected me too. But I knew what I saw. I knew I hadn't planted anything. And as I tried to prove it, I began to notice something even more bizarre. My memories were becoming unreliable. I'd forget why I entered rooms. I'd lose track of what day it was. One night, I swear I saw Noah's door open by itself again, but when I checked the footage from our indoor camera, the door didn't move. Instead, the feed glitched, skipping ahead exactly 17 seconds. 17. Again. I started researching the house. It was built in 1952, went through 5 owners, but something stood out. 3 different children from separate families had gone missing while living here. The official stories were all over the place. One drowned in a lake miles away, another wandered off during a camping trip, and the third simply disappeared from her bedroom during a thunderstorm. No signs of forced entry. No suspects. Just gone. And none of those incidents were in the Zillow listing when we bought the place. I'd have remembered. I scoured public records, but found barely anything until I came across a name. Elijah Thomas. Listed as a tenant back in 1974. A foster child. Removed from his biological parents for undisclosed behavioral issues. The trail ended there. No records of adoption. No school enrollment. Just a blank after his file closed in 1978. The same year this house was left vacant for nearly a decade. I started wondering if Eli, the name Noah gave his imaginary friend, wasn't made up at all. What if he remembered? What if, in some impossible way, that child never left? I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up combing old forums, paranormal threads, missing person archives, Reddit posts about haunted houses. That's where I found it. A blurry thread buried deep in a subreddit no longer active. It mentioned our address, word for word. And a single sentence that made my chest tighten. Asterisk, the boy in the wall still whispers when he's lonely. Asterisk. I tried to print it. The page wouldn't load. When I refreshed, it was gone. Then the dreams started. The same one, over and over. I'd be in the crawl space, crawling on hands and knees through dust and cobwebs. The air would be thick, choking. My fingers would brush something soft, fabric, maybe. And then I'd hear the voice. Not Noah's. Not Sarah's. Just a voice. Raspy. Male. Whispering. Asterisk. It was your idea. Asterisk. I'd wake up sweating, throat dry, fingernails packed with dirt. Real dirt. Like I'd been there. And that's when I started digging. Literally. It felt stupid at first. Standing in the middle of our backyard with a shovel, pretending I was just prepping for some landscaping work. But something about the note, asterisk, under the tree where you buried him, asterisk, wouldn't leave my head. There's a single large oak tree out back, roots twisted and ancient, probably older than the house itself. I dug a foot deep before I hit something that sounded off. Not hard. Hollow. I cleared the dirt and found an old wooden panel, rotted, barely holding together. Underneath it, there was something wrapped in canvas. I froze. But before I could pull it out, Sarah came running outside. Her face was pale. She had Noah by the wrist. He was shaking, eyes wide, muttering something I couldn't understand at first. She screamed at me to stop, said we had to go. Right then. That Eli told Noah something urgent. And when I asked what, she could barely get the words out. Noah had said, asterisk, Daddy already let him out once. Don't let him do it again. Asterisk. And that was the first time I asked myself, what if I wasn't just a bystander in all of this? What if I'd been involved before and just didn't remember? I didn't sleep the night I started digging beneath that oak tree, and not just because of what I almost found. It was something in the air afterward, something thick and charged, like the atmosphere had changed the moment I disturbed the soil. Sarah locked all the doors and windows when we came back inside, every bolt, every latch, even though we were already behind deadbolt doors. Noah refused to sleep in his room, curled up instead in the corner of our bed like he was afraid something would crawl up through the mattress and drag him down. I tried to act calm, like everything was still under control, but the truth is I could feel something shifting. And I could feel it in me. It was like this house, this presence, this whatever it was, had been waiting for that moment, for me to start remembering. The next morning, I went back out there to finish the dig. I knew I had to. If there was something buried on our property, something connected to Elijah, to the notes, to whatever Noah had been whispering about in his sleep, then I had to see it through. But when I stepped outside, the hole was gone. Filled back up. Every single inch of dirt packed down like it had never been touched. Even the shovel I left behind was gone. At first, I thought Sarah had done it, maybe out of fear, maybe to protect Noah. But she swore she hadn't. Said she hadn't even stepped outside since I came in last night. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the soil wasn't just filled in. It had been raked clean, smoothed over. No footprints. No evidence that anyone had touched it. Like someone or something was actively covering its tracks. Later that day, I decided to return to the library where I'd found that brief mention of Elijah Thomas, hoping to access deeper archives or even old foster system records. But when I asked the same elderly librarian, Janet, I think her name was, she stared at me blankly like she didn't recognize me at all. I reminded her of our conversation, the name I'd searched, the photo she showed me of the house's original owners, but she just shook her head and said she'd never seen me before in her life. When I insisted, she leaned in slightly and whispered something I'll never forget. Some histories don't want to be found, she said. And some names remember when you speak them too often. Then she asked me, seriously, like she wasn't joking, if I'd taken anything from the building last time I was there. I told her no. I hadn't even brought a backpack. But she didn't believe me. Her whole demeanor shifted, her eyes going cold, distant. She told me the archive records were being digitized and wouldn't be available for public view until further notice. Then she excused herself, turned, and walked away. I didn't see her again that day. That was the first time I felt like someone or multiple people didn't want me looking into this. I started noticing odd cars parked down the block from our house. Different vehicles each time, always idling for hours, never anyone getting out. And then there was the package. It arrived 2 days later. No return address, no postmark. Just a manila envelope slipped into our mailbox with a single photo inside, a grainy image of me standing in the backyard, shovel in hand mid-dig. It was taken from behind, from an angle that meant the photographer would have been just beyond our fence. Watching. Waiting. And on the back of the photo, written in that same jagged handwriting as the notes, was a sentence that made my stomach drop. Asterisk, he's closer than you think. Asterisk. I didn't show it to Sarah. I knew how she'd react, and honestly, I wasn't sure what was happening myself. But that night, we argued again. She told me she wanted to go stay with her sister in Minnesota, just for a while, just until things felt normal again. She said Noah hadn't slept peacefully in weeks, and neither had she. I told her I was close to understanding it all, that I felt like I was right on the edge of something. But she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "That's the problem. You think this is about finding answers. I think it's about something trying to give them to you, and I don't think it's doing it out of kindness." She said Noah had started sleepwalking, that she'd found him 2 nights ago standing in front of the attic door with his eyes wide open, whispering the same phrase over and over. Asterisk, he forgave you. Why don't you remember? Asterisk, I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what it meant. But the next morning, when I opened my laptop to check my emails, everything was gone. My inbox, my files, my folders, every document I'd saved from the library, every photo I'd taken of the notes, vanished, wiped clean, as if someone had reached through the screen and hit a reset button on my life. I took the laptop to a repair guy across town. Just some kid in his 20s who worked out of his garage, the kind of place people go when they don't want official records. He looked at the drive for about 5 minutes before giving me a weird look. Said there was nothing wrong with the machine at all. Hardware was perfect. But the software? It had been rewritten. Not just formatted, rewritten. Like someone or something had custom-coded it to look like it had never stored a single thing. Then he asked me something that shook me deeper than I expected. You ever use this laptop in an electromagnetic field? I laughed at first. Thought he was joking. But he was serious. Said the level of data degradation was consistent with something being exposed to a massive electrical surge, like lightning. Or, in his words, asterisk, something paranormal. Asterisk. Now I know that's not the kind of thing people throw around lightly, especially tech guys who deal in logic and motherboards. But the kid looked dead serious. He even offered to keep the hard drive and try running deeper forensics on it, see if he could salvage anything. I agreed, left him the laptop, and drove home with my hands shaking the whole way. That night, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It said only one thing. Asterisk, stop. Asterisk, then the number vanished. I tried calling back. Disconnected. Tried to screenshot it. The image came out black. Everything was spinning out. The worst part? Sarah wasn't talking to me anymore. She slept in Noah's room now, her back to the door, like she didn't want me near her. I could feel the wedge driving between us. Like something was pushing us apart, intentionally. And maybe that's when I started wondering, what if Sarah was hiding something, too? Because when I checked our bank records later that week, I found something odd. A transaction for a hotel booked 3 weeks before the first note appeared. A 2-night stay under her name. I asked her about it. She said it was a mistake. Said she used her card to book something for her friend at work. But I didn't believe her. The charges came from a hotel only 5 miles away. Why wouldn't she mention that sooner? Why lie about it? I didn't push. Not then. But I started watching, listening, trying to piece together who was on my side and who wasn't. Then came the final straw. I went back to the backyard, just once more, dug again under the oak tree, this time with a friend from work I trusted, someone who thought I was just clearing out roots. About 1.5 feet down, we hit something metallic. Cold. Rectangular. Not a box. A door. A trapdoor. It said, asterisk, don't trust the one who sleeps closest to you. Asterisk. And for the first time, I didn't know whether it meant Sarah or Noah. I didn't sleep that night, not even with the lights on, not even with my back against we didn't open it. Not that night. But as I looked at it, dirty, rusted, clearly untouched for decades, I heard something I'll never forget. A knock. From beneath the door. 3 soft, deliberate knocks. My coworker ran. I didn't blame him. And when I came back the next morning to try and open it, just me this time, the trapdoor was gone. Covered in fresh sod. Like it had never been there. And buried right where I'd left my gloves the night before, there was a new note, half buried, like it wanted to be found. Wall and a kitchen knife under the mattress, like some paranoid survivalist. I just lay there, eyes open, replaying that final note in my mind. Asterisk, don't trust the one who sleeps closest to you. Asterisk, the phrasing haunted me, not just because of what it implied, but because of how precisely it was aimed. It wasn't vague. It wasn't like the others. It was direct and intimate. It meant someone or something had been watching, not just observing us from afar, but knowing where we slept, how we moved, how close we'd let danger sit. And worse, it forced me to question the one thing I'd been holding on to throughout this entire spiral: my family. The house was quieter than usual, almost like it was listening. Even the floorboards, which usually creaked under the weight of shifting air, seemed to hold their breath. I heard Sarah stir once, maybe twice, from Noah's room down the hall, but I didn't go check. I was afraid of what I'd find, or what I wouldn't. I stayed in the living room, staring out the window at the backyard, trying to remember every detail about the trapdoor that had disappeared. Every inch of it had been real. My coworker had seen it too. I wasn't imagining things. But if I wasn't, then who had removed it so fast? Or better yet, how? Around 5 a.m., my phone buzzed with a new message, this time from my cousin Nate, who lives in Portland. We don't talk much anymore, not since we drifted apart after our grandmother's funeral a few years back, but I hadn't even told him about what was happening. The message read, asterisk, why would you send me something like that? Asterisk, no context. No follow-up. Just that. Confused, I called him immediately. When he picked up, he sounded groggy, irritated, like he hadn't slept either. He told me he'd received a package late last night. No name on it, no return label. Just his name, scrawled in that same jagged handwriting I'd seen on the notes. Inside was a photo of him as a child, one I'd never seen before. He was maybe 8 or 9, sitting on a swing in his childhood backyard. But in the photo, right behind him in the shadows, stood a tall figure wearing a blue coat. The same coat. The same face. Nate didn't know who it was. I asked if he still had the envelope. He said it was gone. Not misplaced. Asterisk gone star. Like it vanished overnight. And when I told him what was happening to us, when I finally spilled everything, the line went quiet. Then he said something I didn't expect. This isn't about your house. It never was. That phrase lodged in my brain like a splinter. Nate told me something strange had happened to him about a year earlier. His daughter, who was just 6 at the time, started drawing pictures of a man in a long blue coat. He thought it was something she saw on YouTube or a cartoon, but the drawings kept showing up on her bedroom walls, even when the crayons were taken away. He said it stopped as suddenly as it started. And until now, he hadn't thought about it again. I started piecing it together. Elijah Thomas wasn't just tied to our house. He wasn't just some abandoned foster child who never moved on. This was something bigger. Something generational. Something that didn't care about time or distance. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't Elijah at all. Maybe he was just a mask. A face for something older. Something more intelligent. The possibility rattled me. I'd been digging for a body, for bones, for some old truth buried beneath the oak tree. But what if I'd been looking in the wrong place entirely? Later that afternoon, Noah began complaining of a headache. He said it hurt inside his ears, like someone was whispering too loud right next to his head. I took him to urgent care just to be safe, but nothing came up. No infection, no fever, no signs of anything physical. The doctor even ran an MRI out of caution and everything came back clean. But when we returned home, I noticed a drawing folded into the sleeve of his jacket. It wasn't there when we left. It hadn't been in his pocket or mine. But somehow, it found its way in during the visit. It was a crude pencil sketch of our family, me, Sarah, Noah, and a fourth figure, drawn in the background, standing just outside the window. Wearing the coat. Eyes like hollow pits. Sarah didn't see it at first. I quietly tucked it into my wallet before she could. I wasn't hiding it from her out of malice. I needed time. Time to figure out whether I was dealing with a ghost, a stalker, or something no word really fits. And maybe a part of me was still holding out hope it was all just a coincidental storm of stress and delusion. But that hope shattered when I went to retrieve the original notes, every single one I'd kept in the locked drawer of my desk. They were gone. All of them. The lock hadn't been broken. The drawer hadn't been tampered with. They'd just vanished. As if they were never there. I stood there for minutes, drawer wide open, heart racing, mind unraveling. Because if they were gone, I had no proof. Not to Sarah, not to the police, not even to myself. And right as that realization landed, I heard the unmistakable sound of Noah's voice, calling from upstairs. Only he was in the kitchen, right next to Sarah, eating cereal. I ran up the stairs 2 at a time, heart pounding, and found the hallway empty. Except the attic door? It was open. Just barely. Cracked, like someone had gently nudged it. That was new. We never went into the attic. Not because it was forbidden, but because it was just insulation and wood. Empty. Or at least it used to be. I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every creak in the wood like it might snap beneath me. The air got colder with each step. Not drafty. Not breezy. Cold, like walking into a refrigerator. And when I finally pulled the attic door fully open, I saw something that didn't make sense at all. Photos. Dozens of them. Strung across the beams, like clotheslines in a forgotten backyard. Every picture featured a different child, always alone, always mid-laughter, mid-cry, mid-sleep. And in the corner of every photo was that same figure. Watching. Present. But the one that hit hardest, the one that made my knees buckle, was the final photo. One I'd never seen. A photo of me. Not recently. As a child. 5 or 6. Standing outside a red brick building I couldn't place. Holding a toy airplane. And behind me, blurred but unmistakable, stood the man in the coat. Watching me. I never remembered that day. I never remembered being followed. But someone had. Someone who wanted me to see this now. To understand this had started long before I stepped foot in this house. I staggered backward, nearly slipping down the attic steps. I didn't even realize I was holding one of the photos until I reached the bottom of the stairs. I turned it over, hoping for a date, a clue, anything, and there, in faded pencil, was a line I didn't expect. Asterisk, Sarah knows. She always knew. Asterisk. The moment I read that message on the back of the photo. Asterisk, Sarah knows. She always knew. Asterisk. My stomach dropped into a hollow pit that felt bottomless. I stared at those words for what felt like hours, my fingers trembling, my mind fighting against the thought with everything it had. But denial was losing strength. The signs had been there. The hotel booking. The way she kept Noah close, like she was guarding him from me. The night she screamed at me to stop digging. The tension that had built between us hadn't just been fear or stress, it had been knowledge. The kind you carry like a heavy coat, suffocating but familiar. She wasn't just scared of what was happening. She was scared I might find out. Still holding the photo, I walked downstairs, the air pressing against my chest like a physical weight. I found Sarah in the living room, flipping through channels absently. The TV flickered from news to cartoons to static, then back again. Noah was upstairs, drawing in his room, humming softly to himself. I asked Sarah if we could talk. Her eyes didn't meet mine at first. She just muted the TV and nodded. I showed her the photo. I didn't say anything. I just placed it in her lap and watched her reaction. The color drained from her face before she even turned it over. And when she did, when she saw that message scrawled on the back, her lips parted but no words came out. That silence was louder than any scream. She finally looked at me, eyes glassy, not quite crying but close, and whispered, "I didn't want you to remember." It was the way she said it that shattered me. Remember, not find out. Not discover. Remember. That meant one thing. She knew I had been part of this before. And for a second, the world tilted. My entire reality bent in a way I couldn't explain, like I was standing at the edge of something massive and terrifying and impossibly old. I demanded to know what she meant, but she didn't answer. She just stood, picked up her phone, and walked out the front door without saying another word. I followed her, but by the time I made it to the porch, she was already in her car, backing down the driveway, tears streaking her face. She never came home that night. At first, I told myself she was just clearing her head, that she needed space, maybe to protect Noah. But deep down, I knew something else was happening. Something far worse. The next morning, I called her sister in Minnesota. Sarah hadn't called. I tried the hospital. She hadn't shown up for work. I checked traffic cams online. No sign of her car anywhere along the highway. It was like she had simply vanished. And the silence that followed wasn't just unsettling, it was deafening. That same day, I found the front door cracked open when I came back from the store. I never leave the door open. I know I locked it. Noah was still at home, watching cartoons in his room. But something was off. The house smelled different, like burnt wires or ozone, the way the air smells before lightning strikes. And there was something on the kitchen counter I hadn't left there. Another note. Folded in thirds. Smaller than the others. Barely bigger than a receipt. I unfolded it slowly, heart racing, throat tight. It said, asterisk, you forgot the shed. Asterisk. I froze. The shed. It had been behind the house since we moved in, weather-beaten, filled with old tools and broken furniture from the previous owners. We never used it. The door stuck, the windows were dusty, and the whole thing leaned like it was tired of standing. But now, reading those 4 words, I knew something was in there. And worse, I had been meant to find it. I put Noah in the car and drove to a friend's house across town, told him we had a gas leak, asked him to watch my son for a few hours. He didn't ask questions. He saw it in my face. I returned home alone. And that was when everything shifted. That was when it went from strange to terrifying. It was almost evening. The sky had turned a deep bruised purple, and the air was still, like even nature had hit pause. I walked slowly to the shed, flashlight in one hand, crowbar in the other. My breath came in shallow gasps. I don't know if I was afraid of what I'd find, or that I wouldn't find anything at all. The door resisted me, as if it was holding back a secret, creaking open with a groan that sounded almost alive. Inside, the air was stale. Dust hung like fog. Tools dangled from hooks, unmoved in years. But in the back, against the far wall, something new had been placed. A chair. And on it, an old VHS tape. Labeled in red marker. Asterisk, play me. Asterisk. No player. No TV. Just the tape. I took it inside, hands shaking, and scrambled to find the old combo VHS/DVD player we kept in storage. I dusted it off, hooked it up to the TV, and pushed the tape in. The screen went black, then flickered to life. At first, just static, then grainy footage. A child, maybe 4 or 5 years old, sitting in a room I didn't recognize. Crying, rocking back and forth. A woman's voice behind the camera said gently, "Tell them your name." The boy sobbed harder, barely able to speak. "Elijah," he whispered. "My name is Elijah." The screen cut to black. Then came another image. This time clearer. A backyard. My backyard. Present day. Someone was filming from the woods. The timestamp showed it was recorded 2 days ago. And in the center of the frame was me, digging under the oak tree. My every movement, every breath, caught on tape. I staggered back from the TV. The player suddenly whined, the tape ejecting itself as if pushed by invisible hands. I tried to record the screen with my phone, but the video wouldn't save. The screen flickered, turned blue, and then shut off entirely. Like it had served its purpose. Like it wanted me to see, but not prove. I stood there, sweating, panting, my body vibrating with adrenaline. And that's when the lights cut out. Total blackout. My first thought was a power outage. I checked the street from the window, lights still on in every other house. Just us. Only us. And as I reached for my phone to call the power company, it buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. One new text. Asterisk, now you're listening. Asterisk. That was when the panic truly set in. Because whoever this was, they weren't just watching. They were controlling, nudging, orchestrating. Every note, every picture, every message, they were breadcrumbs leading to something I was never supposed to remember. And Sarah? She had known. Maybe she had tried to stop me. Maybe she had protected Noah. Or maybe she had disappeared because she got too close to the truth herself. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor, back against the wall, crowbar in hand, waiting for the next move. I was no longer in control of the story. I was a piece on someone else's board. And somewhere out there, someone or something was moving the other pieces. And when morning came, there was a knock at the door. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. I waited. Heart thudding. Another knock. I opened it. But there was no one there. Just a package. And a note pinned to the front, in the handwriting I'd come to dread. Asterisk, she left because of what you did. Are you ready to see it now? Asterisk. The air felt wrong. Not heavy, not cold, just wrong, like I was breathing inside someone else's memory. That package on the porch, wrapped in plain brown paper and bound tightly with a thin red string, sat in my hands like a loaded weapon. My fingers trembled as I peeled the paper away, careful, half afraid it might explode or bleed. Inside was an old manila folder, the kind you'd find in an evidence room or tucked away in a therapist's locked cabinet. It had a name on the front, scribbled in thick black ink. Asterisk Elijah R. Carter. Asterisk the name from the tape. The crying boy. The boy who had said he was Elijah. And my stomach turned to ice. Because that wasn't just some random kid. I had seen those eyes before. They were mine. The folder was stuffed with yellowing documents, photographs, typed reports, and transcripts from sessions I couldn't remember attending. My mind started reeling, unable to keep pace with what my eyes were reading. There were records from a state-run children's facility in Oregon. Photos of me as a child. At least, it looked like me, same jawline, same haunted stare, but the dates didn't match. These were taken in 1992. But I was born in 1987. It didn't make sense. None of it made sense. And then I found it. The page that shattered everything. A psychiatric evaluation. It listed me, or rather, Elijah Carter, as having developed an elaborate coping mechanism involving an alternate identity and fabricated family unit following a traumatic loss. My brain couldn't process the meaning at first, but it was spelled out in clinical, brutal terms. Subject exhibits signs of dissociative identity disorder. Reconstructed narrative includes fictionalized wife, Sarah, son, Noah, and suburban home setting. Subject demonstrates resistance to reality testing and frequently retreats into secondary persona to manage distress. I read it over and over, unable to breathe. This wasn't some backstory about a stranger. It was me. Or, at least the me I had been told I was. But what did that even mean now? Was Sarah not real? Was Noah not real? My son? The person I had held in my arms, watched cartoons with, comforted through nightmares. Asterisk, was he a fabrication of my broken mind? Asterisk, or worse, had someone gone to great lengths to convince me of something that wasn't true? I couldn't think straight. My vision swam. Every memory I had began to feel warped, as if someone had twisted the reel of my life and fed it back through the projector upside down. I rushed upstairs, calling for Noah, heart racing. His room was empty. The bed was made. The walls were bare. No toys. No drawings. No signs of him anywhere. The closet was open, but it was empty. My hands shook as I ran to the bathroom. Sarah's toothbrush was gone. Her robe no longer hanging on the door. No perfume on the counter. It was like they had been scrubbed from the world. But I knew I hadn't imagined them. I knew it. Except there were no pictures. I scrolled through my phone, nothing. Not a single photo of Sarah. No messages. No call history. I checked my laptop, the cloud, the backup drive. Nothing. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it echo in my skull. How could they just vanish? How could everything vanish? And then the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway, too desperate to care. A woman's voice on the other end, calm, clinical, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. "We need you to stop, Elijah," she said gently. "You've gone too far this time." "Who is this?" I demanded, trying to steady my voice. "You've done well making progress. But reactivating the memory loop is destabilizing you again. Please return to the center. We can help you rebuild the construct. What center? What the hell are you talking about? I shouted, but she was already gone. The line went dead. I stood there for what felt like hours, drenched in silence, the phone still to my ear. And that's when I heard it, the creak of the front door. I turned slowly, blood rushing in my ears, and saw a man standing in the hallway. Tall, lean, dressed in dark clothes, but his face was mine. An older version, graying at the temples, eyes worn with knowledge I couldn't comprehend. He didn't speak at first, just studied me. I told them you weren't ready, he finally said. You opened the loop too soon. I backed away instinctively, gripping the edge of the table like it might anchor me to something real. What are you? I whispered. What is this? You're remembering, he said. That's dangerous. We're not supposed to remember. That's why they built the story. The house. The kid. The wife. To protect us. From what? He looked past me then, eyes full of something ancient and hollow. From them. Then the lights flickered. The walls trembled. And outside, beyond the windows, the world began to glitch. Not figuratively. I mean, the edges of things started breaking apart. Pixels, static, distortion, like reality was a corrupted file trying to reload itself. The man, *me*, or whatever version he was, stepped forward. You need to choose. Go back in. Or stay out here and face what really happened. My knees buckled. My vision blurred. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. I remembered something then. Something small. Almost nothing. A birthday party. A candle blown out. A woman laughing. But the laughter turned into screaming. Fire. Then nothing. A white room. Monitors. Needles. And the sound of someone whispering my name over and over until it didn't sound like a name anymore. Elijah. 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 What if this wasn't a story about an imaginary friend? What if I was the imaginary friend? What if none of this was real? And then, the screen went black. Only a single phrase remained, glowing in red letters across the television, like a command. Wake up. The sound came back before the light did, a high-pitched tone that pulsed behind my eyes like a migraine trying to scream its way out of my skull. I was sitting. That much I knew. Not in my home. Not on my couch. The room was too sterile, too perfect. It was like someone had tried to recreate a version of a doctor's office from a dream, but got the details slightly wrong. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, though they didn't flicker. There were no visible light bulbs. Just light. Bleeding from the ceiling like a memory you weren't supposed to remember. In front of me sat the man again. The older version of me, Elijah, or whatever that name meant now. He didn't smile. He didn't move. Just stared at me like a patient waiting for a diagnosis. You're here because you broke the loop, he said. Because you stopped believing. I wanted to argue, to scream that I didn't know what that meant, that I had believed in Noah, in Sarah, in the house with the blue door, and the backyard with the broken fence. But something inside me had already shifted. The moment I'd seen that glitch outside the window, reality had unraveled like thread from a sweater, and I knew, somewhere deep down, I was never supposed to pull it. You were part of an experiment, he said calmly. Voluntary, at first. But something went wrong. They say trauma is a virus, that it mutates inside memory. So they built a neural construct, gave you a wife, a child, a life clean of contamination. But you started questioning things. Imaginary friends aren't supposed to leave real notes. Children that don't exist don't draw real blood. You crack the code. I stood slowly, my head spinning with 1,000 questions that had no anchor. And you? I asked. What are you? He leaned forward, and for the first time, I saw the fracture across his face, like a mirror that had been glued back together, tiny lines of light pulsing beneath his skin. I'm what's left when you wake up too many times and forget which version of yourself you were supposed to be. I'm the echo. Suddenly, the room rippled. Not just the walls or the ceiling, but the air itself, like heat waves rising from pavement. Through the distortion, a door appeared behind him, heavy, metallic, humming softly with power. and behind it, voices. Real ones.
Crying. Pleading.
Familiar. Noah. I called, heart pounding. Sarah? He didn't stop me as I moved past him. Didn't flinch when I grabbed the handle. But just as I turned it, his voice returned, low and urgent. If you open that door, you can't go back. You'll remember everything. Everything. And that world, the house, the bedtime stories, the drawings under the pillow, they'll be gone. My hand froze. That was the moment.
The choice.
Go back to the safe illusion, or tear it apart forever. I opened the door, and everything shattered. Behind it wasn't a hallway or a lab or another twisted simulation. It was a room, small and dimly lit, like a bunker carved into the earth. And in the middle of it, strapped to a chair, was me, my real body, pale, scarred, frail beyond recognition, tubes running from my arms into machines that hissed and blinked. My eyes were open, wide and empty, and yet I felt them turn toward me. A mirror, but not one I recognized. On the wall above the bed was a screen. It showed images and flashes, Sarah laughing, Noah building a tower of blocks, the backyard swing, the envelope with the note, all the fragments of the world I thought I'd lived. A narrator's voice filtered through hidden speakers, reading aloud every moment like a script being fed to an actor who never questioned his lines. And standing beside the bed was her.
Sarah.
Only it wasn't my Sarah. This woman was colder, sharper. She wore a lab coat.
A badge.
Her hair pulled back tight in a way I had never seen before. She didn't smile. She stared at me with the exhausted pity of someone who had told the same lie too many times. You weren't supposed to wake up, she said softly. Not yet. I stepped forward, struggling to breathe.
Why?
What is this? She motioned toward the figure in the chair. That's your real body. You volunteered for the experiment 5 years ago. After the fire. After your real family died. The words hit like a truck. I stumbled, bracing against the wall. No. Sarah's alive. My son, Noah, he's. She stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw the scar beneath her left eye. The same one I remembered from the hospital photo. The real Sarah. My wife. Only she wasn't my wife anymore. She was the lead engineer. The architect of the construct. You broke, she said. The grief, it nearly killed you. So we built you a safe place. A world where you could still be a husband, a father, a protector. I shook my head, blinking back tears. And Elijah? The imaginary friend. A failsafe, she said. A conscience inside the program. A version of you that could whisper the truth if you ever got too deep. I turned back to the screen, watching flashes of Noah's smile. He was real. He felt real. Sarah's voice cracked. He was as real as you needed him to be. I stood there, hollowed out by the truth, unable to decide which pain hurt more, the fire that killed them, or the fiction that let me believe they were still alive. Then something changed. The screen glitched again. The image flickered to static. And then just for a moment I saw Noah. But not in a memory. Not in a flashback. He was standing in the corner of the room.
Real.
Breathing. Holding the note. The same note from under his pillow. I turned sharply, searching the room. Sarah hadn't seen him. The Elijah in the chair didn't move. Only I saw him. Noah looked up, eyes wide. You're not alone, Dad, he whispered. You never were. The lights burst. The machines roared. And everything went black. When I came to, the hum of machines had vanished, and for the first time in what felt like years, there was quiet, true quiet. No glitching lights, no artificial buzzing, no scripted voices feeding me memories I never lived. Just silence, heavy and raw, the kind of silence that makes your own breath sound foreign. I didn't know how much time had passed. It could have been seconds or centuries. But I knew, deep in my bones, that something had changed. The chair that once held my body was empty. The wires, once pulsing with synthetic life, now lay limp and cold across the tile. Sarah, real or constructed, was gone. The entire room had shifted. the metallic walls now cracked with veins of ivy, as if time itself had seeped in and reminded this place it didn't belong outside nature. What remained in that space wasn't technology or science or grief. It was the echo of a boy's voice saying, "You're not alone." That voice, Noah's voice. It played in my mind like a haunting lullaby, half comfort, half plea. And as I stepped forward, I saw what he'd left behind. One final note, placed carefully beneath the chair where I'd once been kept. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper, expecting a message written in childish scrawl or some cryptic command left by a ghost. But what I found was heartbreakingly simple. A drawing. Crayons on lined paper, the kind we used to hang on the fridge. A house, a tree, a swing, and 3 figures, Noah, me, and Sarah, holding hands. Above them, in big block letters, it said, "Still here." I dropped to my knees. Because in that moment, it didn't matter what was real or programmed. Didn't matter if I had been trapped in a digital dream or a psychological prison built by my own trauma. What mattered was that somewhere, in some version of truth, love had found a way to stay. That's the thing they never tell you about grief. It doesn't end. It doesn't fade. It shapeshifts. It becomes a presence, a shadow in the room, a tug on your heart when no one's watching. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it becomes a message left under a pillow, reminding you that the people you've lost are not really gone. They're just waiting for you to remember. I walked through what was left of the facility, or the construct, or the dream. I'm still not entirely sure. Doors melted into walls, hallways led to nowhere, and every turn felt less like an escape and more like a return. Outside, the world wasn't what I remembered. There were pieces of my life scattered like breadcrumbs. Our streetlight on the corner, the oak tree where Sarah once read novels in the summer, even the broken fence in the backyard. But they weren't aligned. It was like someone had shaken a puzzle box and left the pieces suspended midair. Still, I walked forward, and with every step, the air grew warmer, more human, less synthetic. I don't know if I ever escaped the program, or if I simply made peace with it. Maybe the truth is that healing isn't about waking up, it's about choosing which version of the world you can live with, and learning to carry your ghosts beside you instead of behind. And then, in the final stretch of that warped world, I saw him.
Noah.
He wasn't older.
He hadn't changed.
Still wearing the same pajamas, still clutching his dinosaur plushie. He stood under a streetlight, barefoot in the soft glow, and looked up at me with eyes that didn't belong to code. They belonged to memory, to love, to everything I'd tried so hard to hold on to. I walked to him, knees weak, heart breaking all over again, and he smiled, so calmly, so kindly, like he knew all along I'd find him here. "I missed you," I whispered. He nodded. "I was always here. You just stopped looking." I held out my hand, and he took it. His fingers were warm.
Real.
And for the first time, I stopped questioning what any of it meant. Maybe I never left that chair. Maybe I never survived the fire. Maybe I'm nothing but an echo of a father trying to rewrite the ending. But if this is the dream I'm trapped in, I'll take it. Because in this dream, my son remembers me. And in this dream, I remember him. As we walked into the fading light together, the world behind us dissolved. But the note, his note, remained. Somewhere, in some reality, someone would find it. Someone would read the message a lost boy once left for his father and understand the truth hidden between the lines. Still here. So if you're watching this and wondering what's real, if you've ever lost someone so deeply it feels like they took a piece of you when they left, maybe this story is for you. Maybe that voice you hear in your quietest moments isn't just your mind playing tricks. Maybe it's your version of Noah, reminding you that love doesn't disappear. It lingers. It waits. It writes notes under your pillow when you forget how to dream. And maybe, just maybe, it's still here. Now tell me in the comments, what would your note say? Don't forget to subscribe for more haunting stories that live where memory meets mystery. You've stayed with me this long, and I promise, the next story is one you won't forget.